Welcome to Mindfulness, a space where ancient wisdom meets the modern world, where the words of great teachers like Shi-Heng Yi, Thich Nhat Hanh, Jack Kornfield, and Sharon Salzberg come alive in ways you can actually use today. This is not a lecture hall, and I'm not here to hand you abstract philosophy. I'm here to share something you can try as soon as you finish reading. Something that might just stretch the way you experience life itself. Shi-Heng Yi once said that mindfulness is like taking the lens cap off your mind's camera. Most of us walk through our days with that cap half on, catching only flashes of what's really happening around us. We see enough to function, to get to work, to eat lunch, to scroll through the evening, but we miss the depth, the detail, the magic. When you take that cap off completely, it's as if the number of frames you capture in a day doubles or triples. More frames mean more memories, richer experiences, and strangely enough, the sensation that time has slowed down. It sounds mystical, but science backs it up. Studies from cognitive psychology show that when you're fully present, the brain encodes more data per moment. That extra richness is what makes a week feel full instead of blurry. Jack Kornfield often explains it like this. When we pay attention, we live more lifetimes within the same lifetime. Shi-Heng Yi echoes the same, that to live fully, we must stop letting our days vanish into autopilot. I learned this lesson one morning in the simplest way. I was rushing to catch a train, eyes on my phone, my head buzzing with to-do lists. Then a woman in front of me dropped her coffee. She didn't curse or rush. She just laughed, knelt down, and began cleaning it up as if she had all the time in the world. I don't know why, but I stopped walking. I noticed the steam rising from the spill, the way sunlight hit the station floor, the murmur of people talking. My breath slowed. The train still came. I still got on, but the rest of the day felt longer, more spacious. I had stumbled into mindfulness without even trying. Shi-Heng Yi would say that was my mind momentarily coming into alignment with my body. In that moment, I wasn't thinking about the next thing. I was here. And when you're here, you have the power to respond, not just react. That's what mindfulness really gives you, the ability to adjust your mental state before it spins out. Sharon Salzberg calls it the gap between the match and the flame. We often think mindfulness has to be a formal practice, sitting cross-legged in silence for 30 minutes. But some of the most respected meditation teachers in the US remind us that it can be woven into ordinary life. Jon Kabat-Zinn, the pioneer of mindfulness-based stress reduction, says, "You can't stop the waves, but you can learn to surf." And surfing doesn't only happen on the cushion. It happens when you take a breath before sending that angry email. It happens when you pause to feel the warm water on your hands while doing dishes. It happens when you notice your shoulders relaxing on the drive home. Shi-Heng Yi teaches that this isn't about escaping life. It's about entering it more fully. Imagine you're a musician. Mindfulness is the difference between just playing the notes and actually feeling the music vibrate in your bones. The song might be the same, but the experience is completely different. The key is not to turn mindfulness into another thing to achieve. It's not about doing it perfectly or checking it off your list. It's about catching yourself, just for a second, and saying, "I'm here." Over time, these seconds string together, and you find that your days have more breathing room. Time stretches, not because the clock changes, but because you've changed your relationship to it. Tomorrow morning, try this. Before you pick up your phone, before you dive into the noise, just sit at the edge of your bed. Feel your feet on the floor. Listen for the quiet sounds of the morning. Maybe a bird outside. Maybe the hum of the fridge. Maybe just your own breath. That's the lens cap coming off. That's the doorway to a longer, richer day. Shi-Heng Yi calls this training the mind to stay awake. The Buddha called it right mindfulness. And every modern teacher worth their salt will tell you, it's not about perfection. It's about presence. And presence, as you'll see, changes everything. Shi Heng Yi often compares the mind to a muscle, one that can be trained, strengthened, and refined. And just like building physical strength, developing mental resilience takes consistent practice. But the remarkable thing is this: science shows that mindfulness doesn't just make you feel calmer, it literally changes the structure of your brain. Back in the early 2000s, neuroscientists began studying experienced meditators, many of them students of American teachers like John Kabat-Zinn, Sharon Salzberg, and Joseph Goldstein. Using MRI scans, they found that regular mindfulness practice increased gray matter density in regions linked to emotional regulation, memory, and empathy. At the same time, the amygdala, the part of the brain responsible for our fight-or-flight stress response, actually shrank in size. That's not metaphor. That's biology. Shi Heng Yi puts it in simpler, almost playful terms. When you train your mind to be here, you're teaching it not to panic every time life throws a curveball. And life will always throw curveballs. The question is, do we get swept away in every storm, or do we learn to stand steady in the wind? One of my favorite examples comes from Jack Kornfield, who once told the story of a student struggling with anger. This man had a short fuse. Traffic, customer service lines, even minor inconveniences would set him off. After months of mindfulness practice, he found himself in the middle of an argument, and instead of exploding, he paused. He took a breath, and then he chose different words. He didn't feel like a different person, but his brain had learned a new path, one that led to peace instead of regret. That's the power of mindfulness. It creates space. Neuroscientists call it response flexibility, the ability to choose your reaction instead of being controlled by it. Sharon Salzberg often says, mindfulness isn't about not having emotions. It's about not letting them push you around. In Buddhist terms, it's the practice of seeing clearly without getting lost in the fog. When I started mindfulness, I assumed I had to stop my thoughts. That's what I thought meditation was, an empty, quiet mind. Shi Heng Yi laughed when he heard me say this in a workshop. If you try to stop thoughts, you'll end up in war with yourself, he said. The goal is not to stop them, but to see them like clouds passing across the sky. The Buddha taught the same principle over 2,500 years ago. Awareness, not suppression, leads to liberation. And here's where the science meets the ancient wisdom. When you repeatedly bring awareness to your thoughts and feelings, you're strengthening the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for reasoning and self-control. Over time, your default mode shifts. Stress still happens, but your nervous system doesn't light up like a fire alarm every time. You become less reactive, more stable, more grounded. Think of it like building an inner shock absorber. A difficult email, you feel the jolt, but it doesn't throw you off course. A harsh comment from someone, it stings, but you can choose not to carry it for the rest of the day. Mindfulness doesn't mean nothing touches you. It means you have the strength to bend without breaking. Shi Heng Yi likes to remind his students that this isn't just about personal peace. It's about the people around you too. When you train your mind, he says, you train your relationships. Your calmness spreads. Your patience becomes a refuge for others. This is how small personal practices ripple out into the world. So the next time you feel yourself starting to boil over, in traffic, in a meeting, in line at the grocery store, see if you can find that pause. Take a single mindful breath. Remind yourself, I don't have to react right now. This moment is my choice. And every time you do that, you're not just calming down, you're rewiring your brain for resilience. Shi Heng Yi has a saying that always makes his students smile. If you only practice mindfulness when you're on the cushion, you're missing the other 23 hours of the day. For him, and for many great teachers like Thich Nhat Hanh, John Kabat-Zinn, and Pema Chodron, mindfulness isn't something you do. It's something you live. The problem for most of us is that life already feels full. We don't need another task on the list, another habit we feel guilty for skipping. The secret is to slip mindfulness into what you're already doing. That's what Shiheng Yi calls hidden training. Weaving awareness into the fabric of everyday life so it becomes natural, like breathing. Imagine starting your day without grabbing your phone first. Instead, you take 30 seconds to notice the feeling of your feet on the floor, the sound of the morning air, maybe the scent of coffee brewing. That's it. You've just practiced mindfulness before your first sip of caffeine. No timer, no special posture, just noticing. Thich Nhat Hanh taught his students to use mindfulness bells. Not literal bells, but ordinary cues in daily life. Every time the phone rings, the traffic light turns red, or you hear footsteps approaching your desk, that's your signal to pause and take one conscious breath. Jon Kabat-Zinn suggests doing this while washing dishes or brushing your teeth. If you can't be present for the dishes, he says, you probably won't be present for much else. When I tried this, I started with my daily walk to work. Instead of rushing with earbuds in, I took one block each day to walk without distractions. I noticed the sound of my shoes hitting the pavement, the colors of the buildings, the way the sunlight filtered through the leaves. That small shift made the whole walk feel different. It was like discovering a secret layer of my own neighborhood. Shiheng Yi reminds his students that the real benefit of hidden training is how it sneaks past our resistance. We don't feel like we're doing meditation, so there's no pressure to do it perfectly. Yet over time, these micro moments add up. They become a habit, and habits become our life. Pema Chodron often says that mindfulness in daily life is like learning to ride the energy of your own mind. We don't have to stop what we're doing. We simply bring our attention to it. Folding laundry, feel the texture of the fabric. Eating lunch, actually taste the food. Driving, notice your hands on the steering wheel, the sensation of the seat beneath you. The Buddha's own guidance on this was incredibly practical. In the Satipatthana Sutta, he taught that mindfulness can be practiced in every posture, walking, standing, sitting, lying down, and in every action, whether eating, drinking, dressing, or even going to the bathroom. Presence was never meant to be locked inside a temple. It belongs in the marketplace, the kitchen, the subway, the office. And here's the beautiful thing. You don't need more time to do this. You're already living these moments. You're just giving them a richer quality. Shiheng Yi calls it turning lead into gold, transforming routine into something alive, meaningful, and nourishing. Start small. Pick one activity you do every day and turn it into your mindfulness anchor. Make coffee without multitasking. Take one mindful breath before answering a text. Pause at your front door before leaving the house, just to feel your presence in your own life. These aren't big, dramatic changes, but they're the ones that last. Because mindfulness isn't about escaping your life to find peace. It's about finding peace right where you are. Shiheng Yi often says that mindfulness is not just about how you relate to your own mind, but about how you relate to the world. When you are truly present, people feel it. They feel seen, heard, and valued. That presence can transform the quality of your relationships, not by making you perfect, but by making you real. Think about the last conversation you had where you felt completely listened to. No one was checking their phone. No one was waiting to jump in with their own story. They were just there with you. That feeling is rare, and it's powerful. Jack Kornfield calls it the gift of attention, and it's one of the most valuable things you can give to another human being. When we are distracted or reactive, our relationships can suffer in subtle ways. We might interrupt without realizing it, misinterpret tone, or respond based on assumptions instead of reality. Mindfulness helps us catch these patterns in the moment. Sharon Salzberg teaches that when we bring awareness into a conversation, we create a field of kindness where understanding can grow. Shi Hengyi explains it in a way that blends ancient wisdom with modern reality. He says that in conversation, most of us are not really listening. We are waiting to reply. Our minds are already drafting a response before the other person has finished speaking. Mindfulness flips that. It teaches us to listen fully, with curiosity instead of judgment. In Buddhist practice, this is known as deep listening, a skill that Thich Nhat Hanh described as a way to relieve suffering in others simply by giving them the space to express themselves. This practice also changes the way we respond in conflict. Imagine someone criticizes you at work or in a personal relationship. Without mindfulness, you might immediately feel defensive, raise your voice, or shut down. With mindfulness, you notice the surge of emotion in your body, maybe tightness in your chest or heat in your face, and you take a breath. You give yourself just enough space to choose a response that aligns with your values, rather than one you'll regret later. Jon Kabat-Zinn tells his students that you can't stop the waves, but you can learn to surf. In relationships, the waves are misunderstandings, disagreements, and moments of hurt. Surfing them means staying balanced, even when emotions run high. It means remembering that the other person's words are not the whole of who they are, and that your reaction can either build a bridge or burn one. Mindfulness also deepens the relationship you have with yourself. Often, we treat ourselves in ways we would never treat a friend, with harsh criticism, impatience, and unrealistic expectations. Buddhist teachings remind us that self-compassion is not indulgence. It is essential for growth. When you practice being present with your own feelings, without immediately trying to fix or judge them, you build inner trust. You learn that you can face whatever comes without abandoning yourself. Shi Hengyi encourages his students to see every interaction, with others and with themselves, as training. A difficult coworker is an opportunity to practice patience. A disagreement with a friend is a chance to practice clarity and compassion. Even a moment of loneliness can be a teacher, showing us how to stay with our own company without fear. The more you bring mindfulness into relationships, the more you'll notice a shift. Conversations feel richer. Conflicts become less explosive. You feel more connected, even in silence. And perhaps most importantly, you realize that presence itself is love in action. Yi often reminds his students that mindfulness is not about creating a life without storms, but about learning to stand in the rain without drowning. Adversity is inevitable. Illness, loss, disappointment, unexpected change. What transforms the experience is how we meet it. Mindfulness doesn't remove pain, but it changes our relationship to it. In difficult moments, the mind tends to spin stories. Something goes wrong and suddenly we're not just experiencing the event itself. We're reliving every similar hurt from the past, predicting every possible disaster in the future. The Buddha called this the second arrow. The first arrow is the pain life delivers. The second arrow is the suffering we create by resisting it, exaggerating it, or getting lost in it. Mindfulness teaches us to notice the second arrow before it sinks deeper. American teacher Pema Chodron often shares that the most important thing we can do in hard times is to stay with the discomfort without trying to escape. That doesn't mean we like it, but it means we stop running from it. Shi Hengyi gives a similar image. Imagine sitting by a fire that's giving off smoke. If you panic and run through the smoke, you just end up coughing and lost. If you stay still, you can see where the air is clear and choose your path with intention. Science has shown that mindfulness changes the brain's stress response. People who practice regularly have lower cortisol levels and recover faster from emotional upsets. Jon Kabat-Zinn describes this as building resilience from the inside out. You become less like a fragile glass that shatters under pressure, and more like bamboo, flexible, bending with the wind, but never breaking. I once spoke with a woman who had gone through a painful divorce. She told me that what got her through was not positive thinking, but mindful thinking. Every morning, she would sit with her coffee and notice exactly how she felt. The heaviness in her chest, the knot in her stomach, the waves of sadness. She didn't try to push them away. Over time, she said, the feelings moved through her like weather. Stormy days still came, but they no longer defined her. Shi Hengyi emphasizes that mindfulness in hardship is about returning to the present moment again and again. When your mind races ahead to what if or why me, you gently bring it back to this is what's here right now. That present might be difficult, but it's almost always less overwhelming than the endless mental projections we create. Buddhist teachings frame it simply. Everything changes. The joy, the pain, the boredom, nothing stays forever. Mindfulness allows us to witness this truth directly, to feel the impermanence, not as an idea, but as a lived experience. Knowing this, we can meet challenges with a quiet confidence. Not because we control the outcome, but because we trust ourselves to stay steady within it. Shi Hengyi tells his students that even in the hardest moments, there is always one thing you can control: your next breath. When you feel lost, start there. One breath, then another. This is not weakness. This is the practice. And with time, you may find that what once crushed you now becomes your greatest teacher. Often says that mindfulness is like cleaning the windows of your perception. When the glass is dirty with constant thoughts, worries, and expectations, the world looks dull and predictable. But when you wipe it clean with presence, even familiar things can appear new, vivid, and inspiring. That clarity is where creativity begins. Many of the world's most creative minds, from artists to entrepreneurs, credit mindfulness with helping them see possibilities they would have otherwise missed. Jon Kabat-Zinn describes it as falling awake to the richness of the moment. When you're truly present, your mind isn't just replaying old ideas. It's exploring, noticing patterns, connecting dots in ways that surprise you. Shi Hengyi teaches that creativity isn't something you have to force. It's already there, like a river flowing under the surface. The trouble is, we clog that river with overthinking, multitasking, and self-doubt. Mindfulness opens the channel by clearing out mental clutter. You stop rehearsing the past and predicting the future, and you start meeting life as it is, fresh, alive, unpredictable. Thich Nhat Hanh used to guide his students to wash the dishes as if you were bathing a newborn baby. That simple instruction transforms a chore into an act of wonder. The same shift can happen in creative work. Instead of pushing for the perfect idea, you stay curious. You explore without pressure. You notice details you might have ignored before: a color in the sky, a sound in the street, a phrase in a conversation. And these small things become seeds for inspiration. American meditation teacher Sharon Salzberg often reminds her students that creativity thrives in a spacious mind. When you let go of the need to control the outcome, you create room for unexpected connections. This is why some of our best ideas come in the shower or on a quiet walk. The mind is relaxed, open, and receptive. I experienced this myself while working on a project that had me stuck for weeks. Every time I sat down to write, I felt pressure to get it right. The more I pushed, the more blocked I felt. One afternoon, I took Shi Hengyi's advice and went for a slow, mindful walk. I noticed the crunch of leaves under my shoes, the rhythm of my breath, the way the light filtered through the branches. By the time I returned, the block had dissolved. The solution had come, not through force, but through letting go. Mindfulness also helps us notice beauty in the ordinary. The way steam curls from a cup of tea, the texture of a worn book cover, the laughter of a friend. These moments feed our creative spirit, reminding us that inspiration is everywhere if we're paying attention. The Buddha himself taught that the miracle is not to walk on water, the miracle is to walk on the earth. When we see life this way, we're never short of ideas, because every moment holds something worth noticing. Shi Hengyi believes that living with this openness makes life itself an art form. You're no longer just moving through your days on autopilot. You're actively shaping them, choosing colors, textures, and rhythms. And the more you practice, the more you realize that creativity is not just about making things, it's about making meaning. Mindfulness is not a destination you arrive at once and for all. It's a path you walk every day, sometimes with steady steps, sometimes stumbling, but always moving toward greater awareness. Shi-Heng Yi reminds his students that the real victory is not in never losing focus, but in noticing when you've drifted and gently returning. That return is the heart of the practice. Throughout this journey, we've seen how mindfulness can slow down time, rewire your brain, strengthen emotional resilience, weave presence into daily life, transform relationships, help you meet challenges with steadiness, and unlock your creativity. But all of these are branches of the same root, the ability to be here, fully, in the only moment you ever truly have, this one. American teachers like John Kabat-Zinn, Sharon Salzberg, Pema Chodron, and Jack Kornfield all echo this truth in their own way. The Buddha taught it over 2,500 years ago. Shi-Heng Yi lives it through his training, showing that mindfulness is not something separate from life. It is life, lived with open eyes and an open heart. When you practice mindfulness, you begin to notice that peace isn't something you chase. It's something you uncover. It was always there, hidden beneath the noise, waiting for you to quiet down enough to hear it. In that quiet, you discover not only calm, but clarity, kindness, and a sense of connection that stretches beyond yourself. This doesn't mean life becomes perfect. The storms still come, the waves still rise, but now you have the tools to meet them with courage, compassion, and a steady breath. As Shi-Heng Yi says, when the mind is calm, even the storm becomes a teacher. So, wherever you are right now, on your commute, in your kitchen, sitting quietly in your room, take one conscious breath. Feel the air move in and out. Notice the way your body is supported. Let your shoulders drop. That's mindfulness in action. It doesn't require incense or a meditation hall. It requires only you, willing to be present. And if you want to keep walking this path with guidance, inspiration, and practical tools from teachers around the world, I invite you to connect with the Mindfulness channel. It's a space to learn from masters like Shi-Heng Yi and many others, to find simple practices you can use right now, and to remind yourself, as often as you need, that peace, clarity, and presence are never out of reach. They are here, in this breath, waiting for you to notice.